Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Monday Lunchtime Digest for August 4th, 2025. Happy Monday, Hayley.
Happy Monday, Micah.
So, Hayley, we have a lot to cover today. And before we jump into everything, I just want to ask you this question. Wouldn't it be nice if you had someone that got up every single morning, that looked over just the news stories and things like that, anything that they thought was relevant to mental health in Oklahoma, that they just sent that to you? Wouldn't it be nice just to have somebody do that for you?
Oh, absolutely, it would.
Well, Hayley, we are that friend. So OCI is the one that gets up just about every single morning, looks and see what is going on in the news, and sends links to stories that may be interesting to mental health professionals in Oklahoma. And so you can find those stories in our Facebook feed and in our LinkedIn feed. And there is just so much going on. There's no way that we'd be able to get to everything. But we have a lot to talk about today. And be sure to check out those feeds so you can see all the stuff that we weren't able to get to today. But just real quickly, just some reviews. So we want to make sure that we keep on the radar these interim studies. So we have the Senate interim study. If you remember from watching past Monday Lunchtime Digest, is the one that is looking at consolidating medical boards. And I emailed Senator Paul Rosino's office and asked if that included the mental health boards, and his assistant responded yes, that Senator Rosino, is looking at that as being part of the interim study. So you'll want to send an email to Senator Rosino and just let them know, just real matter of fact, hey, I do not believe that the board should be consolidated. I believe that they should stay independent. Or if you believe the other way, that yes, I think consolidation would be a great idea, I think you should do that. And then offer any assistance in gathering information from them if you want to give them that offer. But just to let them know that we're aware and that that's on our radar. And you most likely will not get an email back. It doesn't mean that they haven't heard. It doesn't mean that they aren't, aware of your offer and your stance. You just may not get an email back from them. Also looking at the House interim studies. And so for them, we have Senator Rosecrans that has brought up this House interim study looking at the effectiveness of the insurance companies in managing Medicaid. And so here at Edmond Counseling Professional Development, we do not take Medicaid, but there's a lot of our friends and colleagues in practice that do, and have strong opinions on how effective that has been or ineffective that has been. And so you'll want to email his office there at that email address. And again, just really let them know these are our experiences with Medicaid and what has been helpful and what hasn't been. And try to be specific. You don't want to just give some broad thing like, it sucks, we should never do this, it should be gone. It's trying to be specific, and so that they know where specifically the pain points are. And maybe, if you're against it and you think it should go back to the old way, that insurance shouldn't manage it, maybe that's what you can state and what you want, but trying to give them some specific points that they can try to work on short of that. So if they can't get rid of these contracts with the insurance companies, at least what can they do to try to make things easier for providers as they navigate that? Also, just real quickly, I think everyone is aware of what's been going on with Ryan Walters, and there is an Impeach Ryan Walters March that's happening this Saturday, August 9th at 1 p.m. at the state capitol. And so if you want to join the people there and march and feel like that Ryan Walters should not be in his position any longer, then you can do that. And of course, if you feel like it's much to do about nothing, then obviously don't show up to the march, or you can email him and let him know that you support him. Also, last, just talking about the new Kevin Stitt executive order. And so I posted that recently in our feed, and what that looks at, I was trying to see if I can pull it up here directly. I can read it all. But what he is looking at is, due to recent Supreme Court ruling that, I'm sorry, I was able to pull it up right here. So this was the Medina versus Planned Parenthood South Atlantic. So that was a Supreme Court decision that gave states the power to decide which providers can take part in their Medicaid programs, and the right to block providers who are in some way connected to abortion. And based on that, then Stitt gave the executive order saying we won't allow tax dollars to indirectly subsidize and flow into the abortion industry. So it is directing the Oklahoma Healthcare Authority to conduct a full review and revision of provider credentialing standards to ensure all participants align with Oklahoma's pro-life public policy, terminate and refuse to renew any Sooner Care contracts with entities that perform, refer to, or are affiliated with abortion services, require all Sooner Care providers to sign a statement attesting whether they or anyone they're connected to are involved in abortion-related activities, and then implement new rules and enforcement mechanisms to ensure ongoing compliance. So the thing that stuck out to me whenever I was looking at it was the referred to part. And so it's been discussed before, we may not get too much into right now, but over the past 2 years that there have been these Oklahoma laws talking about making it criminal and also opening it up for civil lawsuits, anyone that refers a woman to a place to get an abortion or aids them. So if they have them in the car driving them to the clinic, then that's something too that's considered criminal, and either also criminal and also opens up for lawsuits. So if maybe someone else like the grandmother or the father or something like that wanted to civilly sue the person that provided that type of aid. And so that's something that as counselors can provide an ethical dilemma, because part of our ethics is to help give referrals and information and things to people. So if someone comes to us and they're considering an abortion or they want to do that, do you know any safe places out of state where I could go to? Then the therapist has to be really careful about how they navigate that, because if they give them something, yes, you can go here, then there's a possibility that they've broken Oklahoma state law and also left themselves open for civil suit. Also, if you say, hey, I'll get in my car and I'll drive you across state lines, this weekend, then that's something too that leaves them really open to criminal charges. So that's your ethical dilemma, counselor. So do what you feel like is ethically right for you, but we're just here to give you the knowledge to know you have to be really, really careful about how you navigate that and make sure that you follow the policies of the agencies that you work for. With this new executive order from Stitt, I wouldn't be surprised if places that take Medicaid, that have Medicaid contracts, if they come out with something that they say to their therapist of, you cannot refer people to places that give abortion services, to try to make sure that they're able to keep those contracts with Medicaid. So that is what I have. And Hayley, I know you have a lot that you're going to go over as well, but just kind of what are some of your thoughts about some of the things that I put out there?
Well, especially with the abortion ethical dilemma, it's even giving as much information as it is legal in Colorado, or it is legal up to the second trimester in Nevada. Like, even giving that information, if we're not providing specific referrals, if we're giving that kind of information to clients, then that can also give us some sort of liability as well. And so again, it's balancing that line between what do my ethics say when it comes to advocacy and providing resources and advocating for my clients' healthcare, but also protecting ourselves and protecting our license. That way we can still continue to provide these services. Not to say that we can give a direction in particular, but just encourage folks to keep an eye on that law. And also, this might be a time for us to contact our senators and let them know, say, hey, this is something that can negatively impact our clients' well-being, as well as, hey, I know that we have a shortage of mental health professionals in the state. If you want us to do our job ethically and accurately, we need to not have punishments in place for doing so. And so this might be, again, a good time to reach out to your representative, to your senators, and let them know how this might be impacting you as well.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's good advice. So Hayley, I know that you've been looking at Trump's new executive order that he came out with. So tell us about that one.
Yes, and so this executive order was signed as of the 25th of last month, and it is called the Ending Crime and Disorder on America's Streets Executive Order. And so, according to the whitehouse.gov, this prioritizes grants for cities and states that enforce bans on urban camping and loitering, and enforce bans on open and illicit drug use. And so there's been many cities that have decriminalized drug use. So I can think of Portland, Oregon, for example. They're a city that has decriminalized drug use. You can still face penalties for selling narcotics or selling illicit drugs, but the actual use or open use is not necessarily punishable. It's moved more towards a referral to care. According to whitehouse.gov, this executive order aims to move people camping on the streets and causing public disorder to treatment centers. And so what this does is that it broadens law enforcement's ability to refer or require treatment for individuals who are experiencing homelessness. So, as we are probably very well aware of, there is a high rate of substance use disorder among and mental health concerns among folks who experience homelessness. Not necessarily that one's causing the other, but there is a higher rate. And so what this does is that it not only encourages law enforcement to refer those experiencing homelessness to treatment centers, but it mandates that. But also, according to NPR, it directs the Health and Human Services, Housing and Urban Development, and houses the Transportation Authority to send grant money to places that are actively cracking down on illicit drug use, urban camping, and loitering and urban squatting. So, in many ways, even though it doesn't specifically say that folks can be arrested for being homeless, it does prioritize funding to those cities that do criminalize things such as loitering, urban squatting, urban camping, and things like that. And so there has been a lot of course, backlash against this executive order. In 2024, there were 770,000 people living in shelters or outside, which is 18% higher than in 2023. And there's a lot of reasons for that. Our economy is getting worse. People are losing jobs left and right. There were many evictions between the year 2020 and 2023. And so there has been a significant increase in those who are experiencing homelessness. And so the Mental Health Association of Oklahoma, they are one of the organizations locally that have spoken out, and they actually did an incredible fact sheet that fact checked a lot of the claims made in the executive order. For example, this executive order, it is defunding those programs that focus on a harm reduction approach or a housing first, because the research suggests that housing first and harm reduction interventions, those are the ones that really not only help folks to get off the street, but also are the ones that are more helpful when it comes to drug treatment. As we know and as we've seen in the past, forced treatment does not necessarily mean that treatment will be taken. And so we can force people, quote unquote, to be in treatment services, but if they're not ready for change, then we can't force that change. But things like providing stable housing, providing stable income, providing access to services in that way, those are the interventions that we see have helped to decrease homelessness across the United States. More things from the fact-checking page. Let's see here. In 2024, there were 31,000 eviction cases in Oklahoma and Tulsa counties alone. In Oklahoma, there's only about 25% of those who are unsheltered have mental illness, and only 9% report having substance abuse. And so according to the executive order, it's a large percentage of those who are homeless who have substance abuse problems or mental health concerns. And so we need to tackle that first, but that's not really shown in the research. Like, yes, there might be an elevated risk among those who are homeless, but it's not the majority of those who are experiencing homelessness that have this. And so by targeting those areas, by targeting mental health or substance abuse, we're not really hitting on the problem, on the root of the problem. And so according to the Mental Health Association of Oklahoma, and in areas where there have been implementation of housing first programs, homelessness decreased by about 88%. And so that is really what the research shows helps with decreasing homelessness. Other organizations have spoken out against it. April Dozier, the executive director of the Share Food and Resource Center in Norman, says that to not only reverse course on housing first, but to institute priorities to institutionalize and criminalize homelessness, it's a really devastating blow to our work. As again, it is not only criminalizing or prioritizing cities that criminalize homelessness, but it is defunding those programs that are providing evidence-based initiatives such as the Housing First and the harm reduction. Other places that have spoken out against this, the National Homelessness Law Center condemns it, calling it unethical, ineffective, and illegal. It says budget cuts for housing and healthcare will only contribute to the problem. NAMI, the National Alliance on Mental Illness, has also spoken out against it, saying homelessness is an urgent crisis, but resources should be invested into supportive housing and wraparound services. NAMI supports the direction of federal agencies to prioritize funding in mental health and drug courts, and many people will lose connection with family and community through incarceration and institutionalization and forced removal. And this connection is the opposite of addiction. Others have spoken out, of course, the National Disability Rights Network and more. But another major problem, and thinking about this over the weekend, we've had a significant decrease in the amount of therapists compared to the need for mental health services. And so, a problem that we talked about last time is that some of the grants have specifically harmed the number of mental health therapists available, even in the state of Oklahoma. We talked about last week, OU's Prime program, which was funding mental health care provider education in the state, was cut, which led to a reduction in the number of potential mental health care providers that would have been going through a program. And so we're showing that there has been a growing need, that our institutions are taxed. There's not enough mental health care providers to meet the need as it is. And so the forced institutionalization of folks who are experiencing mental health crises or substance use disorders, then there's not enough providers to treat them as it is. And so the forced institutionalization, folks, I'm worried, are just going to be institutionalized without any kind of actual support. And so I can go on and on and on about this. The WhiteHouse.gov has more information about their rationale, and of course, many organizations have spoken out against this. But Micah, what are your thoughts so far?
Well, I'm wondering how this will play out for like therapists that work in community mental health, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so here, my understanding of this executive order, at least part of it, is saying people who are homeless need to be institutionalized because homelessness is considered a danger to themselves. You know how we have that whole broad danger to self or others type criteria for why someone needs to be, sent inpatient. And so if that's how it's kind of painted, then whenever a person who's actually doing the day-to-day work and they're meeting with someone, if that is on the federal level, it's saying homelessness is a danger to self, so they need to be institutionalized. Oklahoma state statutes are basically kind of same thing, danger to self or others. But how are Oklahoma state statutes and then this executive order going to conflict with each other? And then for the actual practitioner that is there in a community mental health center who is doing an intake and asks a person, where do you live or whatever, they don't have an address because, they do not, they are unsheltered, then what then? Do they then say, okay, well, now I need to get you inpatient care? They're coming in, they're depressed, they are, outpatient care would normally be the level that they need because they're not suicidal or anything else. But now automatically I need to look at sending them inpatient. And then, of course, if it's involuntary, they don't want to go. Well, then what happens then? I mean, do they go ahead and EOD them to inpatient care simply because they're homeless? And I think that's the thing that community mental health centers policy-wise are going to have to figure out. And then, of course, the community mental health attorneys are going to have to figure out, and ultimately the state of Oklahoma is going to have to figure out, is how does this actually look in practice for the mental health therapist?
Well, and so the executive order does not necessarily say that homelessness is a reason for incarceration or for institutionalization. It doesn't necessarily say that homelessness is a reason for referral to higher level of care. Specifically, what the executive order says is that if someone is homeless and experiencing mental illness or substance use disorder, then it is required that they are institutionalized. So homelessness itself is not a reason for institutionalization. However, in redirecting where grant funds are being awarded to places that do criminalize things often associated with homelessness, such as loitering laws or urban camping, then that can lead individual municipalities to have their own laws that make it easier to incarcerate those who are homeless. But the executive order itself does not make it illegal to be homeless. It just funds municipalities that have these kinds of laws and requires those, if you're experiencing homelessness and you have mental health concerns, then you are required to be institutionalized. And according to, so I have some notes here from the executive order. According to the executive order, it is so must assess federal resources to determine whether they may be directed towards ensuring, to the extent permitted by law, that detainees with serious mental illness are not released to the public because of a lack of forensic bed capacity at appropriate local, state, or federal jails or hospitals. So it says too, it doesn't matter if this person is or this organization or this state doesn't have the beds. These folks are still to be institutionalized, and you just got to figure it out. And so, even though it doesn't criminalize homelessness per se, and it doesn't criminalize mental health concerns, it just makes it easier for folks to be institutionalized or incarcerated that way.
Yeah, and so we'd love to hear from you, especially if you work in community mental health or with a homeless organization, something like that. Just put in your comments your thoughts about this and maybe how your organization is navigating this, because this is something that by really trying to push that sending people inpatient, then that's something that, as you said, we already don't have the beds for it. And then, whenever they get out, well, what are they going to do? I mean, they don't, it's not going to be a magic bullet that's going to fix everything. And so we'd love to hear from you on what your thoughts are and how your organization is navigating that. So thank you, Hayley, for presenting that. Appreciate it.
Absolutely. And NPR has some great articles on it. So if you search Ending Crime and Disorders on America's Streets, NPR, they have quite a few breakdowns of not only what this bill or what this executive order looks like, but how it might affect different areas of the country. But also, I really encourage you to check out the Mental Health Association of Oklahoma's fact sheet on it if you're interested in learning more.
All right. Thank you, Hayley. And Hayley, other research that you've come across?
Yes. So I came across an interesting study. It's another meta-analysis. I love my meta-analyses because it looks like a broad swath of data, and I feel like we get a lot of information just in one article. But this came again from Science Daily. So this was a meta-analysis of 209 studies of over 64 over-the-counter medications, and it looked at what are these over-the-counter medications or supplements, what are their effects on depression. So Micah, what have been, whether it has been things you've learned in trainings or things clients have told you or stuff that the TikTok has showed you, like what have you heard about in regards to what supplements are beneficial for depression, whether or not you think they're true? Like, what have you heard?
I'll tell you, not the TikToks, because I don't watch the TikToks, but St. John's wort is the one that always comes up for depression.
St. John's wort. Okay, so that was one of them that was included in this study. And so in looking at over 64 over-the-counter medications, so what this research paper wanted to do is wanted to look at, what are some of the common over-the-counter medications or herbal supplements that people say, are helpful for depression, and wanted to look at not only what is the efficacy, but how strong is that efficacy? Mm-hmm. And so what it found was that St. John's wort, probiotics, vitamin D, and saffron were 4 of the over-the-counter medications that had the most substantial evidence. And it showed that St. John's wort and saffron showed similar results to prescription antidepressants when it comes to treating depression. It said that probiotics and vitamin D were greater than placebo. And like I can think about if I have a client who is experiencing depression, one of the first things that I really encourage them to do is to go get blood work done by their doctor. Because for clients experiencing depression, I've had it happen a few times where they had low vitamin D. And so even though we can do our behavior activation, we can do all of our CBT for depression interventions, they have low vitamin D, then we're having to dig ourselves out of a deeper hole. And so I've seen that myself, that where vitamin D has been helpful. Other things that they examined, so folic acid, lavender, zinc, tryptophan, rhodiola, lemon balm, bitter orange, Persian lavender, and chamomile tea showed emerging evidence. So not necessarily that they were as effective as antidepressants, but they were showing emerging evidence that they might be helpful. Things such as melatonin, magnesium, cinnamon, vitamin C, and a combination of vitamin D and calcium showed mixed evidence. And so some studies in the meta-analysis showed that they were helpful. Some said that they were no more helpful than placebo. But things like prebiotics showed no evidence compared to placebo. And that's one I've seen online a lot. Not necessarily the probiotics, but taking prebiotics for your mental health. but that showed no evidence of improvement in mental health or well-being compared to the placebo. But something that this research article encouraged future researchers to do was to further look at not only the effectiveness and the dosage, but also, are these medications more cost effective? Is it more cost effective to take St. John's wort over, one of our typical antidepressants like Prozac or an SSRI? And so that's some more food for thought for further research, but also food for thought to keep in mind that even over the counter medications can have contraindications to our medications that we already take, or our mental or our health and well-being concerns. I remember learning in my my very first introduction to psychology class, my professor was talking about potential supplements, and one that he talked about was St. John's wort. And he looked all of the females in the class directly in the eye and said, St. John's wort cancels out the effects of oral birth control. Repeat after me. And so just to keep that in mind, well, one, as mental health professionals, it's not within our license to recommend medications, let alone supplements. So it's not within our license to tell our clients, hey, you should take St. John's wort or vitamin D or whatnot. Now we can make referrals to physicians for things like that. We can make referrals, say, hey, maybe it's good to check with your doctor to see if you need a vitamin panel, see if you're missing anything. We can refer to our physicians. But something to just kind of keep in mind if our clients are saying, well, I'm taking St. John's wort, but I'm also on this birth control because, I don't want any more kiddos right now. That would be a good time to tell them, hey, why don't you talk to your doctor about maybe some possible contraindications there, see how those medications are working together. And so I thought that was a really fascinating bit of research. And yeah, so find that on Science Daily. It was originally published in Frontiers in Pharmacology.
All right. Thank you, Hayley, so much for that. And yeah, as you already say, it's without our area of competence to recommend supplements to clients or to give them any guidance on that. And one of the things that, as you've already mentioned, we can do is tell them to talk with their physician, because we may have a client that, they're on antidepressant medication, but then they decide they want to start trying some supplements in addition to that. And I know St. John's wort plus antidepressant medication, that can cause serotonin syndrome, because it's just the compounding of the effects. And so they need to be aware that that's probably not a good idea to start adding supplements to your medication if you don't know how they're going to interact, and send them to their physician. So thank you so much for that. And that's really, really interesting study about the effectiveness of that. Thank you so much. So I'll have to read up on that. Thank you. Yeah. So a lot is going on at OCI. So we have our fall and winter training dates. That's up now.
Yes, so starting 4 weeks from this coming Friday, so it'll be Friday, September 5th at 9 a.m. We'll have our good friend Colin Turpin talking about higher levels of care and mental health care and when to refer clients up. And in the afternoon, we'll have Huria Suhaib, who will be talking about the ethics of working with clients who identify as Muslim. So 2 fantastic trainings coming up next month. You can go ahead and get your ethics in early, my friends. And then in October, we'll have 2 trainings as well. So Friday, October 3rd, we're going to have 2 webinars. In the morning, we will have Linda Byler talking about introduction to DBT. And in the afternoon, we'll have Frances Patterson, who literally wrote the SAMHSA manual on working with adolescents experiencing addiction to marijuana. She'll be talking about working with adolescents experiencing addiction to marijuana. So she literally wrote the book on it, and we're really happy to have her join us in October. And so we'll have other dates available. You can go to counselinginstitute.org to check out all of our dates. Save the dates for September, October, November, and December for our winter our winter webinar series. If you have any questions, reach out to us. hello@edmondcounseling.com.
That's fantastic. And I'm excited about all of those, and the adolescents addicted to marijuana. I think that's really one I'm excited about, because I've had several attendees ask us, when are you guys going to have a marijuana addiction one? When are you guys going to have a marijuana addiction one? And we've been working on finding a presenter to come do a marijuana dependence one. And now we have one, and she literally wrote the book. So that is really, really exciting, as well as our other presenters. It's going to be fantastic. And then something else fantastic that is coming up is this Wednesday, when we have our Whimsical Wednesday. So tell us about that, Hayley.
So Whimsical Wednesdays is a chance for those of us who work in mental health to get together and just have fun. You can connect and share business cards if you'd like to, or if you just want to connect and enjoy each other's company, that's fine too. But the last 2 Whimsical Wednesdays have been incredibly fun. So the first Whimsical Wednesday we had in June, we met up at a brewery and played some board games. Last month, we met up at Flashback Retro Pub and had a arcade game tournament. And then this month, we're going to go to the study at 701 West Sheridan Avenue in Oklahoma City. We're going to listen to jazz music, and I have another game up my sleeve, so to be continued. And if you join, of course, you're going to have a lot of fun. No cost to join. Food and drinks are on your own, but also you'll have the chance to win free continuing education. So we see you again. That's Wednesday, August 6th, 5:30 to 7 p.m. at the study in Oklahoma City.
Oh, great. Yeah, we really hope that we see you there. So come, bring your friends and colleagues, and we hope to see you this Wednesday at the study. And then just to remind people a little bit about what goes on here at Edmond Counseling Professional Development. So real quickly, we have Smart Recovery, which is an alternative to 12-step. And so you can learn more about Smart Recovery at smartedmond.com. It's based off of cognitive behavior therapy. I saw recently where Smart Recovery here was doing a training with Oxford House. And so I saw that just this morning in my Facebook feed. And so hopefully they're doing a training to have more SMART meetings, because presently we are the longest running SMART meeting in the state. And so people can join our SMART meetings in person or online. It's a hybrid meeting. Information there at smartedmond.com. And then also for clients that have a friend or loved one that is dealing with addiction, that is in recovery or should be in recovery, maybe they're not right now, need support, and also an evidence-based curriculum, then Smart Family and Friends, and information about Smart Family and Friends can be found there at smartedmond.com. And then also we have organizational wellness trainings that we are now providing. So if your organization could use some wellness and you would like to reach out to us, we can do trainings on burnout, different domains of wellness that's based off of SAMHSA and their curriculum. And we'd love to come in and talk to your people about that. And so if you're interested in that, then just reach out to us at hello@edmondcounseling.com or call 405-440-3034.
Or send me a text. I'm a millennial. I'm more likely to answer text. Let's get real.
Yeah, fine. That's fine. They can send a text too.
Just kidding. You can call or text.
So, Hayley, who did we have that won this week on our free CE giveaway?
So our winner this week is Sally Kruger-Lechtenberg. Yay, Sally.
Hey, yay, Sally. Congratulations, Sally. So she's won free continuing education. So how does she get that, Hayley?
So, Sally, you can send me an email, shoot me a text, or give me a call, I guess, 405-440-3034. It'll be happy to get you that free on-demand training. And if you'd like to be like Sally and you'd like to be entered into next week's drawing, you can do one of three or all three things. You can like this post, you can share this post, or you can comment your answer to today's question. Every time you do one of those three things, not only do you help us grow, you help us be seen by others, we also get entered into the drawing for next week's prize. And so that being said, our question for the week is, being that this is the time of the year when schools are starting back up again. I know Western Oklahoma is actually starting school this week, which is wild. A lot of places in Western Oklahoma, I know Oklahoma City schools start next week. But I want to ask, what was your favorite subject in school? So Mike, I'll ask you first. What was your favorite subject in school?
Yes. And so I really had to think about it, because usually my favorite subject was based a lot off of the teacher. So if the teacher made it interesting and fun, then it was my favorite subject for that year. And then if they didn't, it wasn't, right? So I had to really go back and think about like my favorite class and things like that, because obviously psychology is my favorite subject. And it was social psychology by Mary DeZindalet, who was my professor there at Cameron University. So that was my favorite. And I got to do a research project with her. And I remember, standing behind the two-way mirror as I'm observing subjects, do their experiment and writing that data and things like that. And then Trinity coming, my wife at the time, we were, I think we were we dating? Were we married yet, Trinity? Gosh, I don't know. I think we may have been married. Anyway, she'll have to remind me. But coming and meeting me up there, as I was finishing up the experiment and things like that. So Mary DeZindalet, social psychology, Cameron University. Hayley, how about you?
Oh man. So originally I thought about saying my favorite high school one, but now that you've talked about college, I didn't even think about that. College might be I have my favorite course. So Micah, I think my favorite course I ever took was my terrorism course. I got to take a class on terrorism.
Yes.
And so when I was an undergrad, so one of my minors was emergency management, and so I took all the classes like disaster mitigation and things like that. But my favorite one was terrorism, not only because of the subject matter, because it's a fascinating area of research, but unfortunately during my class, the Boston marathon bombing happened.
Mm-hmm.
And so we spent a good part of the semester really dissecting the incident and kind of following along with the news reports and applying the theories of terrorism and counterterrorism to the actual event. And so it really gave me an understanding of how the theories that we're talking about are used to really inform the way that we look at these terrorist events and really define terrorism as well. And so that's a real core memory of my undergrad experience. I'm really grateful that I had. It was an unfortunate event, and I'm very sorry that it happened. But just being able to apply our understanding to this event was really fascinating, and I appreciated that class.
Yeah.
So
All right,
I
fantastic.
love terrorism. I love my terrorism class. Just kidding. I don't love terrorism, but I love my terrorism class.
So we would love to hear from you what your favorite class or favorite subject was in school. So you can put that in the comment section below. And as Hayley already said, every time that you comment, that you like, that you share, each time you do one of those things, you are entered into the drawing to win free continuing education for next week.
Yeah, so thank you all so much for your support. Thank you for watching, and we'll see you next time.
All right, bye everyone. Have a good week.